The Thanksgiving table had become an annual comedy show, and unfortunately, I was always the headline act. 23 relatives squeezed around Grandma's oversized dining table while mountains of turkey, mashed potatoes, and pie disappeared at record speed. The room buzzed with laughter, football commentary, and the familiar scent of overcooked stuffing. I should have known I was in trouble the moment Uncle Rick spotted me. "Well, look who made it," he announced loudly. Jake finally took a break from his busy schedule of doing absolutely nothing. The table erupted in laughter. I forced a smile and sat down. "Be nice," Grandma said. "I am being nice," Uncle Rick replied. "I didn't ask if he's found a job yet." That earned another round of laughter. Cousin Brad nearly choked on his drink. "Maybe Jake's a secret billionaire. That would explain why he never seemed stressed or employed," Aunt Sharon added. Everyone found that hilarious. I laughed along because fighting back never helped. For years, my family had treated me like the permanent disappointment of the family tree. They all had traditional careers: teachers, managers, salespeople, accountants. I bounced between freelance gigs, delivery work, and random projects while trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. To them, that translated into one word: failure. The jokes continued through dinner. "Jake, what's your 5-year plan?" "Make it through next week." "How many resumes have you sent?" "Do pizza coupons count?" By dessert, I was mentally exhausted. Then came the annual gag gift exchange. Everybody brought ridiculous presents. Singing fish plaques, ugly sweaters, toilet-shaped coffee mugs. When my turn arrived, Uncle Rick handed me a tiny envelope. "You're gonna love this," he said. I opened it. Inside was a $2 scratch-off lottery ticket. The room exploded with laughter. "A real investment opportunity," Brad said. "It's the closest thing Jake has to a retirement account," Aunt Sharon added. Even I laughed. What else could I do? I slipped the ticket into my jacket pocket and forgot about it. A few days later, I found it while cleaning my apartment. The place was small, cluttered, and about 3 rent increases away from becoming a cardboard box. I sat on the couch, grabbed a coin, and scratched the ticket. At first, I thought I was reading it wrong. Then I checked again, and again. My heart nearly stopped. I had won. Not millions. Not enough to retire, but enough to matter. $50,000. I stared at the ticket for almost an hour. Most people would have celebrated immediately. Instead, I thought about every failed idea I'd abandoned because I never had the money to start. One idea kept returning: a food truck. For years, I had dreamed about owning one. Nothing fancy, just good comfort food at fair prices. A simple business I could build myself. The next week, after consulting lawyers, verifying the price, and collecting the money, I bought a used food truck that looked like it had survived 3 separate wars. The paint was fading. The engine sounded concerned. One door only opened if you kicked it. Twice. But it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long while: hope. Meanwhile, my family had no idea. As far as they knew, I was still the same joke they laughed at every Thanksgiving. And honestly, that was fine with me. Because while they were busy making fun of my future, I was finally building one. Owning a food truck sounded a lot more glamorous in my imagination. In reality, it meant waking up at 4 in the morning, hauling supplies, cleaning grease traps, and praying the truck would start before customers arrived. The first month was brutal. Some days I sold enough food to cover expenses. Other days I made less money than a kid running a lemonade stand. One particularly bad afternoon, I spent 3 hours parked near a busy office complex and sold exactly 2 sandwiches. One went to a customer. The other went to a pigeon that somehow stole it from the counter. I wasn't sure which sale hurt more. Still, I kept going. The food was good. I knew it was. My burgers, loaded fries, and homemade sauces were getting positive reviews online. I just couldn't figure out how to attract attention. Then one evening, everything changed. The sun was setting when an unfamiliar customer approached the truck. At first glance, she looked human. Mostly. Then I noticed the faint silver glow in her eyes and the subtle blue patterns running across her skin. She was clearly one of the many aliens who had recently immigrated to Earth. She studied the menu with intense concentration. Finally, she pointed at a cheeseburger. "What animal is cheese?" she asked. I blinked. "What? The menu says extra cheese. Is that a separate animal from burger?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped a tray. She wasn't joking. For the next 10 minutes I explained cows, milk, and basic dairy products. Her expression became increasingly horrified. "So, humans drink food before it becomes food?" That's one way to describe it. She ordered anyway. 10 minutes later she returned. Then the next day. And the day after that. Soon she became my most loyal customer. Her name was Lyra. She had recently arrived from a distant colony and possessed absolutely no filter. "You have excellent food," she announced one afternoon. "Thank you. Your marketing is terrible." I nearly choked on my drink. "Thanks again." "I'm serious. Your truck looks like it lost a fight with a parking garage." "That's because it did." She nodded thoughtfully. "That explains much." Over the following weeks, Lyra continued offering brutally honest advice. Most of it was surprisingly useful. She had experience helping small businesses on several worlds before moving to Earth. According to her, successful marketing was universal. People everywhere liked humor, memorable experiences, and food that made them feel happy. Together, we started making changes. We repainted the truck, updated the menu design, created funny promotional videos. Lyra became the accidental star of most of them. One video featured her trying various human foods while reacting with complete confusion. Another showed her interviewing customers and asking questions that made absolutely no sense. How many burgers equal one marriage? Would you trust a potato with financial responsibilities? Why do humans put candles on food and then immediately set them on fire? The internet loved her. The clips spread rapidly across social media. Customers started visiting specifically to meet the funny alien woman from the videos. Lines grew longer. Sales doubled, then tripled. For the first time since launching the business, I wasn't worried about survival. Meanwhile, Lyra and I spent more time together. After closing hours, we'd sit outside the truck sharing leftover fries and talking late into the evening. She told me stories about her homeworld. I told her about my family. When I explained the Thanksgiving lottery ticket incident, she laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. "They mocked you and accidentally funded your success?" "Pretty much. Humans are incredible." That's not the word I'd use. It is the correct word. There was something comforting about being around her. She never treated me like a failure, never judged my mistakes, never acted like my dreams were unrealistic. One evening, while watching the city lights from a nearby park, she looked at me and smiled. "You know, Jake, on my world there is a saying. Oh, the people who laugh at your beginning often become confused by your ending." I smiled. At the time, neither of us realized just how true that statement was about to become. 6 months later, the food truck that had once struggled to sell 2 sandwiches a day had become one of the fastest-growing food brands in the region. The transformation felt unreal. What started as 1 battered truck had turned into 3, then 5, then 10. People lined up around city blocks to buy our food. Customers posted videos online. Influencers reviewed our menu. News stations interviewed us. The biggest attraction wasn't even the food anymore. It was Lyra. Her hilarious personality had become the face of the company. Customers loved her strange observations about humanity. One viral video showed her staring at a hot dog for 30 seconds before asking, "Why do humans enjoy eating food that looks confused about its own identity?" That clip alone gained millions of views. Soon franchise requests started arriving from across the country. Business owners wanted to license our recipes. Investors wanted meetings. Marketing companies wanted partnerships. For the first time in my life, people were asking for my advice instead of giving it. The craziest part was that none of it had changed who I was. I still worked long hours, still cleaned equipment, still worried about customer satisfaction. The only difference was that now I had someone beside me. Lyra and I had officially become a couple several months earlier. Neither of us made a big announcement. One day, we were sharing fries after work. The next day, we were holding hands. The relationship felt natural, easy, comfortable. She believed in me before anyone else did. That mattered more than she knew. Then came the morning everything became truly hilarious. I woke up and glanced at my phone. For a moment, I thought it was broken. The screen displayed 79 missed calls. 79. I checked the number again. Still 79. Most were from relatives. The rest were messages, voicemails, texts, social media requests. Apparently, somebody had seen a television interview featuring our business. The family had finally discovered what happened. My phone rang again. Uncle Rick. I answered. Jake, he shouted enthusiastically. His voice suddenly contained enough warmth to melt glaciers. There he is. My favorite nephew. I nearly dropped the phone. For 10 years, he had called me a professional couch tester. Now I was his favorite nephew. Interesting. I had this amazing business idea, he continued. That's nice. We make me vice president. I waited. That's the idea? Exactly. I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. This time it was Cousin Brad. Bro, hear me out. That sentence never ends well. What if we combine food trucks with luxury parking lots? What? People park. Then they eat. It's revolutionary. I ended the call. 2 minutes later, Aunt Sharon called. Sweetheart, family should support family. That's true. Wonderful. Then I'd like unlimited free meals. How many? Forever. Forever. Future generations should qualify too. I hung up again. The requests became increasingly ridiculous. One cousin wanted a food truck exclusively for dogs. Another proposed a mobile pickle empire. One relative wanted burger-themed wedding venues. Someone suggested opening restaurants on cruise ships designed for people who disliked water. I still don't understand that one. The absolute winner was a second cousin I hadn't seen in 15 years. He called demanding 40% ownership. Why? Because we're family. You haven't spoken to me since high school. Exactly. I've been giving you space. When I told Lyra about that conversation, she laughed so hard she cried. For the next week, every morning brought new messages. Everyone suddenly remembered my birthday. Everyone claimed they had always believed in me. Everyone wanted a piece of the business. Meanwhile, Lyra and I sat in our office reading the messages aloud like stand-up comedians. The people who once treated me like a joke were now desperately trying to join the punchline. And Thanksgiving was only a few days away. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Thanksgiving arrived exactly 1 year after the lottery ticket that had changed everything. The invitation from my family had been unusually enthusiastic. There were multiple exclamation marks. That alone was suspicious. When Lyra and I arrived, the atmosphere felt completely different from the previous year. The same relatives who once treated me like a punchline suddenly acted as if I were a celebrity. Uncle Rick practically sprinted across the room. There he is, he announced. Before I could react, he wrapped me in the kind of hug usually reserved for soldiers returning from war. It is so good to see you. Lyra leaned toward me. Has this human suffered a head injury? I think he's suffering from success exposure. The dinner began, and the transformation became even more obvious. Everyone wanted to sit beside me. Everyone wanted my attention. Everyone wanted to tell me how proud they were. Cousin Brad spent 20 minutes explaining how he had always believed in my potential. This was particularly impressive considering he had once referred to my career plans as professional wandering. Then came the real reason for the invitation. Business presentations. Actual presentations. Uncle Rick wheeled out a projector. A projector. For Thanksgiving. I've prepared a small proposal, he announced. The proposal was 47 slides long. His idea involved turning every franchise location into a motivational center named after him. Nobody understood why. Not even him. Next came Cousin Brad. His concept involved food trucks mounted on hover scooters. The technology didn't exist. The math didn't work. The insurance costs would have caused financial collapse across 3 continents. Brad called it visionary. Lyra called it terrifying. Aunt Sharon presented a loyalty program where family members received unlimited free meals forever. She had already designed membership cards. There were gold levels, platinum levels, and something called Supreme Royal Family status. I wasn't entirely sure whether she was joking. The longer the evening continued, the more ridiculous the ideas became. Finally, everyone looked at me expectantly, waiting, hoping, calculating. I stood slowly. The room became quiet. For a moment, I remembered sitting at this exact table a year earlier while everyone laughed at me. The unemployed cousin, the family disappointment, the joke. I could have embarrassed them. I could have listed every insult, every sarcastic comment, every moment they treated me like I wasn't worth taking seriously. Instead, I smiled. I want to thank all of you. Several relatives immediately looked relieved. Then I continued. A year ago, most of you believed I would never amount to much. The room grew noticeably quieter. You laughed at my ideas. Nobody spoke. You handed me a $2 lottery ticket as a joke. A few people suddenly became fascinated by their mashed potatoes. But something good came from that. I paused, because it taught me that success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Grandma smiled. Everyone else looked nervous. I then announced a new scholarship program our company had created. The program would provide funding and mentorship for struggling entrepreneurs trying to launch small businesses. The room brightened immediately. Until I finished the sentence. Applications are open to everyone. Several relatives nodded eagerly, except family members seeking favors instead of opportunities. The smiles vanished. Lyra nearly choked trying not to laugh. The silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then Grandma started laughing. Soon I joined her. Eventually, even some of the relatives laughed, because deep down they knew it was fair. As the evening ended, Lyra reached into her purse. I almost forgot. She handed each relative a small envelope. Curious faces appeared around the room. Everyone opened them simultaneously. Inside was a coupon worth exactly $2 at any of our food trucks. The room froze. Then laughter exploded across the house. Even Uncle Rick laughed. Hard, because the callback was perfect. As Lyra and I walked toward the door, she slipped her hand into mine. The cold evening air greeted us outside. Behind us, the family was still laughing and arguing over who deserved extra coupons. I looked at the house one last time. A year earlier, I had left feeling like a failure. Now I was leaving with a successful business, a future I loved, and someone who believed in me completely. The funny thing was that the best thing I gained from that lottery ticket wasn't the $50,000. It was the chance to bet on myself. And for once in my life, that turned out to be the winning ticket.